The 1970s weren't just about disco balls and bell-bottoms. The streets themselves were fashion runways for some of the boldest, strangest, and most unforgettable trends. Let's take a walk back through 10 fashion fads that defined the decade and made sure nobody blended into the crowd. Number 1. Platform shoes.
A beautiful shoe by Kenny Shoes. Platform soles and big high heels, lots of colors too. Of all the things we like the best, one must be this shoe. A Kenny shoe we're proud to show. $10.99 for you.
If you were around in the 70s, you remember the thud-thud-thud of platform shoes walking across a linoleum floor. These weren't shoes so much as stilts in disguise. We're talking 4, sometimes 5-inch soles strapped onto your feet, turning every sidewalk into an Olympic balance beam. One wrong step, and you weren't just tripping. You were going down like a cartoon character, arms flailing, praying not to twist an ankle.
Fellow Americans, stop dragging your feet. Wear kitties when you're going to go out on a date.
Look great.
But do you know your feet need a little love?
Kitty knows.
What an agonizing, enterprising, hard kind of day you spend working overtime.
But fashion wasn't about comfort. It was about height and drama. Disco floors across America lit up with platforms stomping in rhythm to the Bee Gees. And it wasn't just the ladies. Guys wore them too. You'd see some poor fellow in polyester bell-bottoms and 3-inch platforms, trying to act smooth while calculating the physics of sitting down without toppling over. Platform shoes weren't footwear. They were a gamble. And in the 70s, everyone was rolling the dice. Number 2. Hot pants. The heavy hitter.
Remember what it was like before Southwest Airlines? You didn't have hostesses and hot pants. Remember?
If platform shoes were daring, hot pants were downright scandalous. These weren't shorts, they were suggestions. Barely there strips of fabric that turned every sidewalk, mall, and roller rink into a runway. Hot pants were the boldest fashion statement of the decade. If you wore them, you weren't just keeping cool in summer, you were making sure the entire neighborhood knew about it. Moms wore them, college girls wore them, even waitresses at chain restaurants wore them as uniforms. And if you were a teenage girl in the 70s, you either had a pair or desperately wanted one. They came in denim, velvet, corduroy, even satin, basically anything that could cling to your hips and stop about 4 inches short of modesty. Of course, hot pants sparked their share of controversy. Some people called them empowering, others called them indecent. But either way, they were everywhere. Nothing said 1970s freedom quite like a tube top paired with hot pants, strutting across a shag-carpeted living room while "That's the Way, I Like It" blasted from the stereo. Number 3. Clogs, the comfort trend.
At this level, it's easy to become an expert on shoe styles. You know what I see a lot of? Jarman. Take those. Look European, they're Jarman.
If platforms were a balancing act, clogs were their chunky, practical cousin. Straight out of Scandinavia, these wooden-soled wonders clomped their way into every American hallway, mall, and homeroom in the 70s. They were heavy, they were loud, and they could double as a weapon if you ever had to kick one off. Seriously, drop a clog on your foot and you'd remember it for days. But for all their awkward bulk, clogs had a certain charm. They slid on easy, looked natural enough to fit in with the whole earth tone back to the land vibe of the decade, and paired surprisingly well with everything from maxi dresses to corduroy pants. Teachers wore them, secretaries wore them, teenagers wore them. Even guys tried them out, though not always with grace. Sure, clogs made walking down the hallway sound like a herd of cattle on hardwood, but in a decade that worshipped at the altar of comfort, clogs were a badge of casual, carefree living. They weren't elegant, but in the 70s, who was? Number 4. Tube tops, another heavy hitter. Now, if hot pants were daring, tube tops were the ultimate test of courage. One elastic band. That's it. No straps, no safety net, just faith that your top wouldn't betray you in the middle of roller skating or dancing at a basement party. Every girl who wore one lived with the constant anxiety that one good sneeze could turn it into a belt. But wow, did tube tops own the 70s? They came in every color, shiny satin, sporty terry cloth, rainbow stripes, and they were always paired with shorts, jeans, or those infamous Ditto pants. They screamed freedom, fun, and a kind of bold confidence that only a teenager in the 70s could pull off. For moms, tube tops were scandalous. For teens, they were the badge of cool, and for boys, well, let's just say tube tops gave them whiplash at the roller rink. Tube tops weren't just fashion, they were rebellion, flirtation, and summer heat rolled into one stretchy little strip of fabric. Number 5. Shearling coats, luxury teen dream.
No matter what your line of work, you can't afford to be without a goose-down coat from Paragon this winter.
Few things screamed status symbol in the 70s quite like a Shearling coat. Lined with plush fleece and worn by the coolest kids on the block, they gave off a mix of luxury and rock and roll rebellion. Sure, they were heavy, sometimes unbearably hot, and smelled like a wet dog in the rain, but man, did they look good in yearbook photos. All right, let's be real. If you've just strutted down memory lane with me in platform shoes, hot pants, or maybe even a tube top, then it's time to hit that subscribe button. I'll keep serving up the retro fashion flashbacks, and you just click that button and we'll call it even. And hey, if you're hanging out on Facebook, come join our nostalgia runway. We've got stories, laughs, and probably somebody still arguing that Dittos were the most flattering pants ever made. Number 6. Ditto's pants, the cult favorite.
This book comes attached to Ditto's tops and jeans. It's called The Book on Fit. It explains that Dittos are designed on real live women. It tells why Dittos are hand-measured at the waist, rise, and inseams.
Not just jeans, these were Dittos. High-waisted with that famous heart-shaped yoke on the back, Ditto's pants made waves in the junior fashion scene. They came in wild colors, velour, and stretchy fabrics that made them the perfect disco dance partner. Girls collected them in every shade, and the fit was so unique you could spot a pair of Dittos from across the cafeteria. Number 7. Satin baseball jackets. Sports met disco with satin baseball jackets. Shiny, colorful, and usually embroidered with your school name or some mysterious initials, these jackets looked just as good over a concert tee as they did over gym clothes. They gave off that effortlessly cool vibe. And while they didn't actually keep you warm, they did make you look like the star of your own after-school special. Number 8. Peasant dresses and blouses. Inspired by bohemian vibes and folk style, peasant dresses and blouses floated down sidewalks like wearable daydreams. Puffy sleeves, embroidery, and flowing skirts made them the anti-disco uniform. They were about freedom, softness, and maybe just a little rebellion against mainstream trends. Pair them with sandals or clogs, and you looked like you'd just come from a poetry reading. Number 9. Rainbow suspenders. Thanks, Mork and Mindy.
Just because I'm from another planet doesn't mean I'm that different.
Trust me, you are different.
The 70s had their fair share of TV-inspired crazes, and rainbow suspenders shot to the top thanks to Robin Williams' breakout as Mork. Overnight, kids and teens wanted those colorful straps over their t-shirts and jeans. They were playful, silly, and surprisingly versatile. You didn't even need pants that required suspenders. You wore them for the look alone. Before we strut off this runway of retro fashion, let's take a look at some of your throwback-style memories from the last video. Comments like these are the best part of making these videos, so keep them coming. Drop your funniest, most cringeworthy, or most iconic 70s fashion memories down below, and you might just see yours pop up right here in the next one. Number 10. Jumpsuits. If there was ever a fashion item that summed up the 1970s love of bold ideas and questionable execution, it was the jumpsuit. Part disco chic, part handyman uniform, this one-piece wonder was everywhere. Celebrities wore them on red carpets, singers belted in them on stage, and average teens zipped them up for school dances or trips to the mall. The beauty of the jumpsuit was its versatility. A denim jumpsuit with flared legs made you look ready to join a rock band. A shiny polyester number with a plunging neckline, straight out of Studio 54. Add a wide belt, some platforms, and suddenly you were serving high fashion, at least by 70s standards. Jumpsuits may have been a fashion gamble, but in the 70s, they were pure swagger. Everyone thought they looked like a star, even if they secretly felt like a mechanic. From platforms to suspenders, the 1970s proved that fashion wasn't afraid to take risks or break ankles. So tell me, what was your 70s fashion statement? Were you rocking hot pants with no shame, or clomping around in clogs like you were born in Sweden? Drop it in the comments. I want to hear your stories.